Okay.
Okay, good afternoon. Brexpats in Spain again with our part 3 of taxation video, and I'm joined again by Ignacio Pellicer, or Pellicer and Herredia, one of our sponsors here, and our taxation expert. Good afternoon, Ignacio.
Good afternoon, Anne. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Still enjoying the lovely weather.
Yeah, no, it's nice, isn't it?
It's amazing,
Still summer.
isn't it? Yeah, it's amazing. Right, so without further ado, should we get on with the questions then? Because we've got several today to get through. So about inheritance tax, the first one says, me and my 2 children, who are Spanish, have been left some money from an aunt who died in the UK. In the UK, the inheritance tax will be paid on the whole amount prior to dividing it up between a large number of people. Do we have to pay additional inheritance tax here in Spain, where we all live? As I understand it, we don't, as long as we have an official document confirming that tax has been paid in the UK. My children are aged 7 and 11 and have no income stroke tax liabilities at the moment. I'm registered autonomous here in Spain. Over to you then.
Okay, thank you, Anne, for the invitation. I must inform everybody here that my recommendation is to seek independent legal advice and fiscal advice. All these webinars and information is general advice. We're trying to help people on the way forward. I highly recommend to discuss it with their own lawyer or tax advisor for accurate advice. And these are just general questions, which I'm happy to answer to the best of our knowledge. But I just want to clarify that on number 1. Yeah, number 2, okay.
I was going to say, obviously, anybody that has a specific question needs a one-to-one with a tax advisor rather than on a video like this. Just generally informing as best we can. Yes.
Correct. My understanding to your first question, is that they didn't receive an inheritance in the UK, but they are resident in Spain. If they're resident in Spain, they might be responsible to do the inheritance tax here in Spain and in the UK. So here they say they've done everything in the UK, which is fine according to the UK law. But depending on the area where they live, which they didn't clarify, they will need to follow the specific inheritance tax law of their community. Let's say if we're talking about Costa Blanca, it will apply one rules. If it's Costa del Sol, it will be different rules. Okay. Now the answer to it, will you need to do the inheritance tax in Spain? Yes. And you've got 6 months to do it here, and you will be able to use a double taxation treaty. Nevertheless, again, as I said, it will depend on the area where you are. If you're in Andalusia, you've got X amounts of money in an allowance. In Costa Blanca, we've got less at the time. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's something we need to clarify, because so many of our members say, what is the law, what is the rule, etc., implying that there should be a national Spanish one. Well, it's very difficult because we have 17 autonomous communities in Spain, plus 2 autonomous cities, and each one of those communities can, within reason, set their own law, their own legislation. So yes, you're quite right. Lots of things will differ between different communities, different autonomous communities. So it's not as easy to give just one answer covering all of Spain. I always try to say it's very similar to England and Scotland, for example. Scotland has their own laws. England has different ones, and that's the only way that you can look at it, really.
That's why it's important, Anne, for them to seek independent advice and for them to do it within the 6 months of a relative passing away. Okay. But it's very important for them to double check in the region where they are.
Is that the cut-off date, Ignacio, 6 months?
Yes, that's correct. But even though you will have to make the application to extend the payment if it's due, at least up to 4 months from the death, because otherwise they will not even get back to you to tell you whether they give you another extra 6 months or not.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, then, so on to the next question. Quite a long question, actually. I've had residencia here for 5 years and have yet to do an income tax return. Our local gestor doesn't know how to, and a lawyer dealing with my late husband's inheritance said she would sort it 2 years ago. Now she says that because all my income is from abroad in the form of state pension, plus 3 annuities, I don't need to do a tax return. A friend with a law degree who knows says it's because of a 2014 agreement which allows you to choose in which country you pay your tax if it's all pensions and all from abroad. Total income last year was under 15,000 British pounds. Are they right? Because the consequences to me could be serious if they're wrong.
Right. Okay. It's a very important question. Let's clarify here. And if you live in Spain more than 183 days, you have to file your income tax return in Spain. That doesn't mean that you'll end up paying tax or not. That's a different thing. But if you're over 183 days and in Spain, you must do it here. Then you've got a double taxation treaty that you will use it in case you did pay as a non-resident, or any tax you pay in the UK, you will never pay double. So it will be deducted here in Spain. But the rule for you to understand is that over 183 days, you need to do it here. If you receive nowadays, and I should mention here, and that every year the law might change. So again, it's very important for people to check on a yearly basis, because this year, the cutoff point was 14,000 euros on pensions if they were taxed at source. That means, or they were not taxed actually, because state pensions, for example, should be paid in Spain if you're tax resident in Spain. So the cutoff point, if you receive over 14,000 euros income or pension, or if you receive from rental money or interest to a different level, okay, you must make a declaration. And the consequence, if you don't do it, you might end up having fines if it's wrong, or if you didn't file it on time. Tax office could go back 4 years down the line to double check. And so the answer is they should do their income.
Yeah, 183 days you are considered a fiscal resident, is that correct?
Correct.
A lot of people need to be aware of that, that are getting their TIEs, because they just think they're getting a residency and don't realise the implications.
No, that's correct. The TIE is just a permit, which is the immigration department, but that really brings the tax implications. So it's I always recommend and to always do the consultation ahead and in advance. So they could sort that out very easily through a video conference or speaking to their lawyer. And it's really worth it. We're talking about saving stress and money.
So this is a bit odd then on this latest one, because she says the local gestor doesn't know how to, and the lawyer is saying that she would have sorted it 2 years ago but hasn't. Obviously she needs to get on the case and get it sorted as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think in this case, and they're talking about the inheritance, sorting the inheritance, which doesn't have anything to do with the income tax return. Right. So I think they're mixing the question.
Oh, okay.
They're saying the local gestor doesn't know how to. I guess that gestor doesn't deal with tax returns, so he doesn't know. And the lawyer didn't finish the inheritance probably because doesn't have the paperwork yet to finish, I guess. So, but the question that she made, I think it was about the tax. The income last year was under 15,000.
Yeah.
So I think this mixing the question. But basically, I think what she's asking is whether she needs to pay tax.
Yeah, and the answer is yes. Something else that a lot of British don't seem to realise, in Spain, I know solicitors will specialise in certain areas. So to say a solicitor should know everything, they don't necessarily. I mean, no. In the UK, they tend to be rather more general. Yes, they will specialise in the same way, but here, rather much more speciality dedicated, let's say, than in the UK being rather more general. So obviously they need to ask around and get the correct solicitor to deal with whatever their issue is at the time.
I mean, sometimes, and they could go to a law firm where they've got different departments for the peace of mind. So
that would be good.
Otherwise, they could speak to the lawyer whether they deal with that case specifically.
Okay, thank you. On to the next question then. What sort of inheritance tax will my sister, named as my only beneficiary in my Spanish will, have to pay on my house in Alicante province, please?
Right. Okay. In this particular case, it's a sliding case, the inheritance tax, and the allowances from brothers and sisters are only 8,000 euros approx, right? So this is the only allowance she gets in the Alicante region. And I mean, we need to concentrate on areas, as I said before. That's the only allowance. After that, it will be a sliding scale.
Okay, so we can't give any identity
in order to do the inheritance tax planning. That's why I say there are very specific questions. What they need to do is speak to somebody like yourself of the conference, give the exact value of everything, and then according to the scale, we do a tax simulation.
Okay.
So I always recommend here on inheritance tax, on wealth tax, in income tax return, to do simulations. And the only reason is, before you end up having the fine and the tax to pay, why not you find out before on your specific case? So what we normally do, if you provide me your specific details, I could work out your exact answer. Here, as I can see from the question, is brothers, and the question is, what sort of inheritance tax? Well, it is a sliding scale. It goes from 7.5% up to 34% with an allowance of 8,000 euros. But I still need a lot of more details to work out how much will be a tax. So if they need that specific answer, we need the specific.
Okay, fine. Okay, and the next question, how is it best to prepare for the future with regards to inheritance of property here and or in the UK, and any capital gains, etc., upon the sale of property for wives, husbands, partners and children?
This is a great question, because as I always say, whoever is planning to come over to Spain now, or whoever just needs this information for a specific advice, what I recommend them to do is an appointment with a lawyer or independent advisor in order to work out a simulation on inheritance tax. What I normally do, and the client will provide us the value of the assets, the dates, the debts if there are any, and the death certificates or dates. And then with that in mind, you can work out, according to the applicable law of today and the applicable law of the region, what will be the exact tax they will pay in the event of. Okay, I always say, I could be answering you today, but if we're talking about next year, the rules could change. You see, as you know, in Andalusia has got some rules, in Costa Blanca we've got another one. So it's better, if you need that specific answer, you need to provide to the advisor all the specific
details. Okay. And the next question, we already have wills here and in the UK. What this person is requesting is what are the laws followed as per the UK, but in the simplest terms, what will actually happen here? I presume here meaning Spain. And how can we make the process as painless and as easy as possible for loved ones we leave behind?
Well, that's an interesting question. I always recommend, and as soon as you are the owner in Spain of anything that is worth some money, to make a Spanish will. Sometimes you could even do international wills if they are handy. Let's say you only have bank account in the UK, or small things that are pretty much straightforward, or in different countries, you could have international. But if you still have certain things in the UK and certain things in Spain, my recommendation is have individual wills in every single country where you have assets. The reason is to make things simple. And as you said, to avoid complications and painless process. Tax planning, again, and very important, is we end up doing a lot, especially now because of Brexit and with the TIE, we do a lot of simulations and consultation of tax planning. And I think it's very much worth it for them to do it, because then you have an S scenario. And with regards to having an executor, again, I think could be very good and very beneficial, depending on your specific situation. Let's say you would like the executor to do certain things, or the lawyer of your confidence to do certain things. For example, some client asked about selling the assets and split the money between the beneficiaries. Well, that's something that you will need an executor to do. And now having an executor is not compulsory, but is an option. And there is something else, and I like to recommend clients, is depending on the age where you are, I mean, if you are already in the elderly, have endurable power of attorney between husband and wife, wife to husband. The reason why is because when we reach certain level, then you might need to go and attend to hospital appointments, and then you might be selling, or you might even have any treatment or whatever. It's very handy to have jointly and severally power of attorney between the family, if necessary. Even if you wish, you could extend it to the lawyer of your confidence. And this is very good. Normally doesn't cost much money, and it really helps you to have a hand, even if you live in the UK, have a hand here, or even husband and wife, then one could do the dealings. So this is something as well. Now, this is only when you, the power of attorney, you could only have it while you're alive. Executors only work after the death. So it's two different situations, but they're both very handy.
And also, just to add to that, to make it as painless as possible, I think very important is to have some sort of funeral plan in place, particularly if you're not speaking Spanish, because here the situation and the process is extremely different to that of the UK. And when you're already feeling upset and worried, and without having to worry about getting family over from the UK, etc., to just be able to make one telephone call and it's all done for you must be, you know, a real weight off your mind, I think. And having said that, we shall be doing a video, an informative video exactly on that, on funeral plans, and sadly on dying in Spain.
I think it's good advice, Anne, because telephone call makes it all, and you just leave professionals to deal with it. And I really think it is very good. And money-wise, I really think is worth it, because pretty much if you don't have an insurance, probably it costs you even more. You know, depending on the days you need to stay in the tanatorio, etc., etc. So I always think it's good for you to keep communication and then have it all sorted. So it's good. It's good you brought it up.
I mean, it's not something we ever want to think about. Obviously, we think we think it's never going to happen to us. But I think it's the kindest thing we can do for those that we're leaving behind. To be honest.
Yeah. Anyway, leaving everything. Yeah. Okay. Good advice.
Moving on from that.
Okay.
The next question: thoughts of joint bank account being frozen, please. Not being able to pay the legal fees and potential tax amounts due to release of assets, etc., is very worrying. In the UK, legal fees for probate is taken from the estate, but not in Spain. So is that right, Ignacio?
Right. I have a lot of questions about freezing assets, and it seems to me a lot of people panic because of this situation. First advice I gave is speak to your lawyer, the lawyer of your confidence, to make sure you have things in order. Now, if you have a joint bank account, the bank, as soon as you or anybody reports it, they will only freeze 50%. Okay. Sometimes you don't even report it to begin with. Let's say it goes husband to wife, wife to husband. If everything goes to the other party, obviously, it's not a problem for you to report it later on the procedure. At the end of the day, banks freeze that just to protect the beneficiaries. Okay. But sometimes that protection might bring a lot of stress to the family. My recommendation is to have it all discussed with your lawyer that you normally deal with. And then the other 50%, if it's husband to wife, wife to husband, do not worry, because at the end of the day, bank, as soon as you provide the will and they know it goes to you, they should be able to give you access to the funds. However, you will always be free on having the 50%. Saying so, I always recommend to say and inform the bank once your lawyer gives you the okay. Okay, especially for you to be able to upfront all the expenses, etc., etc. The point of the bank freezing is just to guarantee that that money goes to the specific beneficiary. Okay, and that's the reason why they try to freeze, to protect that no money is taken to somebody that shouldn't be mentioned in the will. Okay, so that's what I would recommend.
Okay, perfect. And I think the last question, Ignacio, for this video today, we've already answered. It says we're in Andalusia. I believe that inheritance tax can be different with varying rates in different regions. Back to the very beginning. We've gone round in a full circle. Yeah, so the answer is yes, it is different in different regions.
Yes.
So very important to get someone who's a specialist in your area, or at least knows what your regional ruling is.
Yes. I mean, to be honest, law firms could represent you generally, depending on the firm, in different areas. It is important for you to mention that you want to do inheritance tax planning on that specific area. Mm-hmm. The lawyer will tell you whether he's able to give that specific advice or not. Okay. But it is very well worth it doing that simulation, so you'll have the straight answer. What are the allowances that you've got according to today's law? And you could do estate planning, which is very important. And
yeah, perfect. Okay, well, I think unless you've got anything else to add, Ignacio, I'd like to say thank you once again on behalf of Brexpats in Spain. And we have our next video coming up, which will be rather more general, I think, questions relating to taxation. But in the meantime, if anybody wants any more information, to join one of our Brexpats in Spain Facebook groups or our website, or email any of us. Thank you so much, Ignacio.
Okay, thank you, and see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.